Do you overlook planning your field trips, or maybe you don't even know how to maximize a field trip for your homeschool? If so, I invite you to spend the next 15 minutes with me as I walk you through three things that you are going to learn about field trips. The first one is why you should plan your field trips. The second one is what to do before you go on your field trip. And thirdly, how to guide and assist learning while on your field trip. So, I hope you stay tuned. Tag someone in the comment that you think might benefit from this and invite them to join you today. And I want to make sure I introduce myself. I'm Dollie Freeman. I'm a self education expert using the Charlotte Mason method. And this is the Charlotte Mason Mastery Show. I want to show you how valuable these field trips are while sharing with you that in just 3 days, my husband, our third child, Matthias, who is 19, and our fourth child, Manoah, who is 12, will be starting out on an RV adventure for 14 weeks. So I'm really excited about that. And as I've been planning our trips, our route, and such, I've been thinking of all of these amazing field trips we're going to be having and just getting my thoughts in order. And I thought, you know what? I wonder how many homeschool moms know how to do what I'm doing. And so this is me sharing with you how to really capture the opportunities around your home and maybe down the road. So let me get started by first explaining to you why you should plan field trips. What I love about field trips is that it's a great opportunity to get your children in a hands-on environment. I have found nothing better than to make something come alive to our children. When they can actually step in the footprints of those people in which they are about to learn about or have learned about, or if they have been able to see the artifacts of times past, or if they've been able to get firsthand experience of nature and the different aspects of the animals or the creatures in your area from a nature center or even a nature walk, it really helps them to really understand that education is, in fact, living. And it makes them come into this as a more delightful way of how to really run your field trip, and it'll give you the ability to empower your children when they're not just at home, but when you're on a field trip. So let's get into what to do before your field trip. Now, I had to say, I have wasted a whole lot of field trip opportunities. I can't even tell you how many years we went on field trips time and time again. And yes, our children were excited about it. We made sure we went with friends and all of that. But what I found is that when we came back, although it was exciting, they were more excited about the friends they were with and what they were doing in the downtimes of the field trip. And they really were not retaining what that field trip was. And depending on the field trip, there's a lot of expense to taking a family on a field trip. So you want to make sure that you're actually maximizing these field trips. You want to make sure that you're getting your best bang for the buck. You want to make sure that your children are actually pulling something and thinking about it long enough that it becomes knowledge to them. So, what I have found is that when I do a few things before our field trip, it really helps our children to be in the moment, help them to really retain some key informations, and to get them excited and interested in what we are going to be spending our time doing, even if it's with a group of friends. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get their interest of where they're going. So let's say Jamestown is right down the road, Williamsburg, Yorktown. Maybe you've never taken your children to that. And maybe they've never learned about any of those histories or the people that have been in these different spots. So, literally taking a few minutes, I'm not talking about taking 12 weeks to introduce them, but really get them excited. Kids, we're going to be going to Jamestown today. I'm so excited about Jamestown because this is the first settlement in Virginia, and it was settled in this year. And I'm going to tell on myself, I think it was 1607. Um, and you get them excited about a little bit of the information. And the only way to get them excited, mamas, if you're excited. And this is where a mother's education really plays out in helping to pass on that interest to your children. So you do your due diligence, you kind of research about where you're taking them, the things that excite you about what you can't wait to see. I remember when I took our children to the National Art Museum in DC. When I took them there, I love art, but not so much my children. And they were much younger. And so I was like, how can I get them this excited about art? And, art museums, you can't be rowdy. You can't be really active. You got to be reverent, and you've got to be really moving and observing without touching, which is really hard for children. In fact, I could go into a story about how we kind of got in trouble in an art museum, but I won't detour there right now. But what I will tell you is what I did is I researched beforehand. I went on the website and I found about 25 artworks that I really wanted my children to become aware of, spend some time and really research. So what I did is I created a scavenger hunt, so to speak, of telling them the title of the picture. I didn't tell them anything else but the title and a small description, a one sentence description. This is the title and this is what it somewhat looks like. Sort of like a picture study in a one sentence format. And they had to fill in the blank of the artist. And that helped me know that they actually found it. That was probably our favorite field trip to an art museum. And we have been to quite a few. And we've been to the National Art Museum quite a few times. I love art. And so that helped my children get excited about something that interested me. And they may not have found all of them in the amount of time that we were there. And that wasn't the goal, to find all 25. It was to give them something to do, to be excited about, and to look forward to, and to learn in the process. And what we ended up doing at the end of that field trip is, what was your favorite one? And what I found is my children began to do picture study without me asking them to. They were telling me about ones that weren't even on the paper because they were introduced to the different pictures on the wall, trying to see if this fit mom's description or not, and see if it has a title. It was one of our favorite field trips, for sure. So I would recommend to actually do that. You can do the same thing when it comes to nature. If you're going to visit a nature center, what you could do is have a checklist and say, these are the creatures that we're going to be able to see here, and see how many of them you can find, or if you can find the tracks of them, and get them excited to become explorers, to become discoverers themselves, and really get into this whole aspect of getting out of the books and getting into what is around us. Now, if you're doing a history one, you might be able to get them really excited about that part of history by just spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes, getting them interested by your own interest, but also going a little further and giving them a little bit of, I wouldn't say assignments, but getting them a little bit of thing. I want to know when we leave, these are the key things I want you to be able to answer. And if you can answer, as many as you can, let's see what happens. And if collectively we can answer all of these questions as a family, then we can do something fun together. And it might be just watching a biography of one of the people there. It doesn't have to be something special. It can be connected to your education. For instance, there are a lot of videos or movies. Yes, I'm showing my age here. about the American Revolution. So if you were to go to Jamestown, you could easily put 100 things on the paper for them to look for. It could be a moccasin, it can be a tomahawk, it could be a teepee. And I hope you're hearing some of these things. It could be a settler because they have people reenacting. And so this becomes a checklist. And again, one child may not get all of them, but collectively you may all get all of them. So you can use a family checklist versus an individual checklist. And then just get excited. And so you go into Jamestown, you might have learned about John Smith. And so you could have popcorn or candy if you want, and have a movie night about John Smith. We have a video called Pocahontas. You can watch that together in the evening and make it fun with something that is a little different that you might not do, like getting them their own little candy boxes like they would if they were at a movie theater. So those are what I would do before going. Now, how can you guide and assist your children while on a field trip? This is really important because we are not supposed to go on field trips and become the dictator of everything there. Now, there are going to be people, and depending on the field trip, that will actually help you, but you want to help your children ask questions. This is key. I cannot tell you how many times we've gone into museums or nature centers, and our children, I want to tell them when we're there, ask questions. Anything that is in your mind, I want you to ask questions. And I example what that looks like. So when I go into a history and I'll say, what is this tool used for? And then my kids will start saying, oh, well, I don't know what that would be used for. And they will pick up off that question and they'll move forward. And then if we went into an art museum, there's always someone standing nearby. I'll say, I really love this artwork. Is there another artist that has similar artwork that I can also go and explore? And this is how you are teaching your children, by being an example of how to ask questions and get more of the pulling more out. Recently, our daughter went on a field trip on her own for her college assignment. And when she went there, she went not too far up Henriquez Park, where she actually has grown up going to before, but you look at it a bit different when you're an adult. And she had one-on-one people walking through with her. And the questions she asked, they were just like, we have never had anyone ask these many questions and this detailed. So the older your children are getting, the more in-depth they're going to be. And so don't be afraid to ask some of those in-depth questions to show your children that you really can ask those from these people who have the same interest that you have. They're working there because they are very interested in that topic. So instead of reading a book on it, have a conversation about it. And Charlotte Mason calls that oral literature. So encourage your children to be doing that. Guide them in how to ask questions, and then assist them by, if you see a child is very interested in something and they're really lingering around something, look around and say, let's see if we can find someone to come over, and so you can ask some questions about what's interesting you. When you do that, you don't have to worry too much about not making your investment in that field trip worth going, because I have found when we get really personal, we take advantage of the resources around us, we get really good on it. I'm going to throw one more tip in before I close this one. I want you to also encourage your children to use the maps there. Depending on where you're going, there is often a map at every place you go to tell you the different aspects. Do not be the map holder. Encourage one of your children to be the navigator. This will help them learn how to read a map and how to navigate. And this is so fun. Our kids always want to be the map navigator. So encourage that. And then a fun thing is, when you're all done, instead of just having them write a narration or, whatever you want them to do to kind of make a keepsake or journal what it is that they're doing through a written narration or an oral narration, you might even throw in a map work and say, can you duplicate what it is that the map of the place we just visited without looking at the map and see how many of them can actually create a map. And that's what I would recommend for you to really maximize your field trips and make sure you're planning at least one of these types of things every month of your school year. By doing that, you're going to not only give yourself a break from the books, but you're going to get yourself some fresh air most of the time, or just changing pace and keeping your children excited about learning and bringing it alive to them in a way that books often fail to do. And that's through the oral literature of just getting into the places where others have been. Okay, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. I would love to answer them. But I want you to know that next week I will, let me look at the calendar. I will be coming on, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to DM me some questions that you have about planning your homeschool. You can DM me on Instagram, you can DM me on Facebook, you can send me an email at info@charlottemasonmastery.com. I want your questions on planning because next week I will be in Round Rock, Texas, waiting for the Teach Them Diligently to set up. And I have a lot of things to prepare for that. So I figured I was going to make it easy on myself, and I was just going to have an ask me your planning questions and just give you some quick answers to those on this live show. So ask me anything about your questions by DMing me in Facebook or on Instagram or in my email at info@charlottemasonmastery.com. I look forward to answering your questions next week on planning. And until then, I don't see any comments. So until then, I want you to keep doing what you're doing. Remember, what you do matters, and keep yourself feeling calm in the process. All right, I'm looking forward to your questions. Until next time, bye for now.